Welcome to the Building Web3 Podcast. I have my good friend Matt. He is the CEO and co-founder of Gaianet. So Matt, before we get too deep into Gaianet, give us a brief introduction into your background and how you got on to founding Gaianet.
Yeah, of course. My story is a fun one. It's maybe not the most straightforward as some other founders in the space who, PhDs in AI or, you name it. But I started my background in corporate innovation and developer communities. So I used to organize hackathons and accelerator programs in 65 countries around the world with a company called Angel Hack. We used to organize hackathons for Fortune 500 companies like MasterCard, Motorola, UBS, Barclays, JP Morgan. And then around 2015, kind of through that circuit, bringing developers around emerging technologies, different APIs and SDKs, got into crypto. I had some developers, in the hackathons who were hacking away at 1 a.m. and they're like, "Hey, have you heard of Bitcoin?" And then at some point I had a hackathon in New York in 2015 on blockchain with Barclays. And we were actually starting to figure out how do you build on a blockchain. And it was super nascent, super early. So that really started sparking my curiosity around that time. Shortly after I got picked up by JP Morgan, we essentially forked Ethereum. We had a project called Quorum. We made Ethereum work for banks, for enterprises, commercialization, government agencies. And that basically got me knee deep in the Ethereum community. My first day at JP Morgan was at DevCon in Prague, which is kind of wild for people to imagine. Getting on phone calls on the trade desk floor, talking about Ethereum in 2017 was pretty funny. Shortly after that, that project got acquired by Consensus Software in 2020. And so I was at Consensus for 4 years, building out developer communities around our products. Built an accelerator program inside of Consensus called Fellowship for MetaMask and Linea. And I've just been a contributor to the Ethereum ecosystem since 2017 to today. So quite some time, 7 years. And really, looking to bring more builders into the space. And at some point I had this thesis, I still have this thesis around future of work. So how do we take protocols that are infinitely scaling in Ethereum and enable them to have, process automation, governance, financial infrastructure, identity reputation systems that can be coordinated efficiently. And so AI was a big component of this. And we were trying to figure out, what kind of projects would we invest into that could support all this? And we had a really strong partner in Asia called ByteTrade who, they had been doing R&D on decentralized AI and using open source large language models. And we basically came together and we're like, hey, let's solve this problem together. And so now, here we are. We, started really taking the project to market early 2024. But, essentially 1 year later, we have 200,000 nodes on our network. We're looking to go, live with our mainnet sometime next year. And we have the first ever AI agent ran hackathon going on right now on our stack. And, we're working with big partners like Coinbase, Base, Eigenlayer, Lit Protocol, Pravado. Collabland has been building a ton of stuff for the hackathon. And so, just a lot of traction. If you can kind of tell from my background, we're all about throwing software out in the wild, getting developer feedback and creating those feedback loops with our core engineering team and with the ecosystem. We want to see what people want to build. We want to see what agents want to build. We want to see what agents will demand as services as end users in the coming future. But that's my origin. Hopefully that wasn't too much of an intro.
No, it's super interesting. We've had several people, because it almost seemed like the first company you were at was almost like a fractional DevRel, where companies would come in, they're like, hey, we don't really want to be or maybe we don't have the expertise to throw hackathons, so we bring in this company. Exactly. And now it's come kind of full circle where you're, again, using this kind of skill set in order to now talk to us a little bit about a hackathon for AI agents. And then we'll get deeper into Gaianet. But how does that work?
Actually, I'd love to describe this because it actually shows people what's possible. It's really funny when you start talking about what we're doing. and this big grandiose vision, and people get a little lost. They're like, oh, I'm in for it, in for the mission, but like, what does that mean? And so the hackathons really helped kind of paint a picture. So let's unpack a hackathon. A hackathon, for those who are unfamiliar or new, it's getting 100, let's just say like 10 to 100 to 200 to 500 software developers, builders, entrepreneurs, designers together in what used to be like a physical space. Now you can do this, online in different formats. We were doing online hackathons back in the day, but it's really robust now. And you're essentially given the challenge to build around a specific developer framework, open source, code, some sort of GitHub repository that can be, forked, manipulated, contributed to, or any open API or SDK. And you create very broad challenges so that they can get creative and think of new ideas that we wouldn't have thought of. If you tell a developer, hey, go and build with this API, like this specific thing, you're going to get the desired outcome. If you flip it and you say, hey, build the most interesting payment platform that, does like impact for this like social good category, like, supply chain transparency. And here's this little piece of technology, go use that. And you'll get a bunch of projects that will have different creative approaches, views of how to approach the problem, solutions that really I'm always surprised and shocked at the end of a hackathon. And I've personally organized or been a part of organizing probably like 700 hackathons in my career, which is a lot. And so like that, seeing that those many submissions is, it's for me, it's just like, it's a drug. Like, it's really amazing just to see what people can build and while being creative. And for this hackathon, kind of what we were thinking about is like, okay, what are all the processes that are super bureaucratic for someone trying to run their own hackathon? Because you made a really good point. Like, we ran a whole business on the fact that nobody knew how to run a hackathon, and that nobody knew how to, coordinate the right, communities for this. But I don't think that should be the case. I think it should be an open source understanding of how to bring developers together. And as we see protocols and projects, scaling inside of, Web3, just as an example, the process of, taking in the context of the developer documents of the technology you want to build against, taking into context what are pain points in the industry that we need to support or innovate on, and perhaps like what are the technologies that have capital behind them that are really looking to drive adoption. And if you take all of that, you can have an agent that puts up a bounty, puts up a challenge for the hackathon, and so it can creatively analyze that amount of information, gather some context, and then publish some guidelines to how a hackathon can be ran. Agent 2 on our side is the judge agent. So it takes in submissions for the hackathon and it analyzes the judging criteria. I think in the future they can take in additional context, like perhaps community voting, perhaps some sort of community traction, like perhaps like the project that's submitted is already getting some form of traction. As a judge, when you're judging a hackathon physically, it's you have your little criteria, but really it's how strong is the team, how much traction do they have, is the project viable, is this approach unique or creative, is this something new, or is it just some copycat of something else we've seen? And so all this context needs to be conceptualized and then programmed into an agent. And then last but not least, sorry for this lengthy stint, but you need a way to distribute bounties or payments to the projects that won the hackathon. And you can use Web3 Rails to do this in a provable, immutable way. You can pass like DIDs or some sort of on-chain credentials, or you can use identity systems like an NFT to govern if that person actually won the hackathon. And so our agent basically is identifying who won. It grabs their wallet, and it's distributing $50,000 of payments to teams that have won. And we're doing that with Coinbase and Base. And I think the big challenge there that's interesting to solve is that in the hackathon space, it's a always very hairy problem on how to distribute bounties. There's KYC, AML, just general like compliance and like legal issues that come about from distributing bounties. You don't know if you're distributing money to an unauthorized person. And I think by delegating that responsibility to an agent could either create some additional legal risk, or perhaps it mitigates it altogether. Like how do you sue a robot? I'm sure someone will figure out how to do that eventually. But right now, I think it's been an interesting experiment. And we already have a bunch of protocols and projects reaching out like, hey, can we do one with you guys? And like, I think it's the future. I think the future will be every project has its own innovation funnel, where you can have year-long hackathons, accelerators, grant distribution programs, bounty distribution programs. You can have a human in the loop, but I don't think it's going to be the same world we were in 5 years ago or even today, where you needed to rely on like a hackathon shop to put this together.
Yeah, maybe just for the in-person stuff. It's somewhat funny. I have so many points I want to make about this. Is the like KYC and EMA and like the regulations. It's like as if like the North Korean hacking team's like, we're low on funds, guys. We really need to start ripping some hackathons. I mean, maybe, but I doubt it. It's like, aren't there bigger fish to fry? But that's beside the point.
No, you're not wrong, and I think that is the fear of any institution in the U.S. is like, oh shit, like are we, funding a North Korean developer for building something, and that's why like we're working with Bravado ID, which used to be Polygon ID and Disco on KYA, so know your agent, and so at some point, we will have to do KYC processes for the agent itself, and then perhaps the agent, like if really needed, if the developer of the agent thinks that this is a framework to approach, you could program some KYC processes in there, pretty light KYC processes. But for the hackathon, we needed to move fast. We're like, let's just experiment, see where the pain points are.
Absolutely. I think it's super interesting to see how this, like, I'll almost call it like developer marketing will change in the world of agents. Because now, instead of marketing straight to human developers, you also have to be like, how do I market to an agent? Like, how do I make 100%. Sure, like, let's say I'm Circle, and I brought this up in the interview, launching soon, by the way, people can check out this episode. We're talking with the Circle head of growth, and we're like, well, how do you convince an AI agent to use USDC instead of USDT or Athena or any of the, like, you now have to think about, like, how do I market to agents? I don't know if you've thought much about that process, but I suspect you have.
It's a major thought of mine is, look, I think this is a crazy comment I'm about to make that is not unrealistic, but a lot of people are like, oh, we are about to have the largest population of unbanked enter the internet. We're about to have more agents online than humans on Earth, around 6 to 8 billion, and that's quite shocking. You're like, oh crap! Like, what does that mean? That's scary? Like, is Twitter going to be noisy? Is it going to be extremely competitive and inefficient to use blockchains for transacting if agents are clogging it up? And there's like so many other things to consider, like what kind of software can we sell these agents, or what kind of financial services can we sell them? What do they need, and do they need interfaces? Like, do they just are they able to just operate off API calls? There's so many interesting thoughts there, and it's I think the paradigm shift is that we're not just building software for humans anymore. Like, we have to take in consideration that this is a brand new customer category opening up, and Lincoln from Coinbase said it best. I was on a panel with him the other day, but he's like, the first billion participants in Web3 will not be humans; they will be agents. I think it's a breakout category. It should be very exciting for people. I'm also optimistic because I feel like these agents can be programmable, governable. I think they don't see value that they don't see value the same way we do. I think they're, I've joked about it before, but they don't pay bills. They don't go to the club till 3 a.m. they don't need to like go buy coffee. And their bills are going to be more around, AWS cloud bills or, gas fees, compute costs, buying data, perhaps. I've seen people mention that, nobody wants a data marketplace because, humans don't want to buy data marketplaces. Agents will more likely be the consumers of that. They're going to need to train their inference. They're going to need to, go check out a marketplace of where to buy inference and data. And so, we're entering a very interesting world where, we are going to have to reconsider how we participate on this web, and it's a completely different value exchange.
Yeah, people are really, really interested in these topics. One is they can go to the podcast I host for Zero Gravity, which is all about on-chain AI. But pretty much the past two conversations I had, one with Theoric and the other, Hyperbolic. Theoric, of course, we interviewed them, but Hyperbolic and Mind Network, they both said like we'll have AGI probably in the next like 3 to 5 years, and they're like 5 years even feels too long.
I was saying we're going to have more agents on the internet in 2 years, and one of my colleagues from Consensus was like, he thinks 1 year. So I think this is moving really, really fast. Like if you're following Twitter, it's almost unreadable. If you're following the AI agent, thought leaders, it's crazy.
And if you look at the mind share, I was actually just talking with somebody from Polymer today about this. So if you look on Cato, the mind share right now, mind share for people it's like what percentage are talking about a specific theme. So like 35% of crypto Twitter is talking about AI, and you're like, okay, but like what percentage of that is actually derived from the agents themselves or people being excited about it? It's quite interesting. In my opinion, there's only been like historically 2 big product market fits for crypto for the general population. Stable coins, which you could say is like loosely RWA, and then DeFi. And now crypto is obviously becoming like the bank account of AI itself. So Quite curious what you think there.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of folks approaching, I don't know if someone's coined it this before, but I've been calling it this AgentFi. I think AgentFi will be a massive category in the next, honestly, year. You mentioned like how, which stable tokens will they be using? This can be the same for, which, liquidity pools they'll be, accessing, or which L2s they're accessing. How are they bridging? Are they building their own bridge? There's a lot of interesting things they can do with the financialization of Web3. These agents are not going to go open up a Wells Fargo bank account, but they can open up a MetaMask wallet in 2 seconds. With a MetaMask delegation toolkit, they can autonomously do things there. And I think the behavior of agents, again, back to their value systems, they're going to want reputation and identity, because the more reputation they have, the deeper they can get into our system, the deeper they can do work, contribute on projects, contribute on governance, any sort of decision making. And that's going to take them doing tasks correctly. And a lot of those tasks are definitely going to be financial. So right now we saw like Truth Terminal, enabling trading ran by an AI, and supposedly, and but technically becoming the first AI millionaire. And then you got AI16Z and the ELISA framework that's just cranking. There's a bunch of financial use cases coming out of that. And also, it just hit $1 billion market cap today on Solana, which is just wild. And I think what we haven't seen yet, though, is AI agents managing an LP position, or like a collateralized debt position, and passing USDC back to its owner, or perhaps it's we have a functionality where you can do voice to text and tell the AI to essentially, hey, go run this transaction in 2 days and send it to my other wallet. So we'll start to see the abstraction of DeFi as well. I think blockchain infrastructure as we see it today is not really meant for human consumption. Like if you're a real DeFi participant, you're not really using like the DEX interface. You're like using API calls on the back end through your terminal. So it's we really built it for robots to operate in, and I think the real applications that are going to come out is the abstraction of that. And it's either us just communicating with agents through some sort of portal or interface to do all the tasks we want to do on Web3, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I do feel like this is the year of abstraction, from like paymasters and gas abstraction to wallet abstraction. It's funny, like, there's been so much talk about wallet abstraction. I've written quite extensively about it, but like the amount of people still using EOAs, myself included, is externally owned accounts for people that aren't familiar. But it's kind of funny. Like sometimes we make this tech, it's like, who's actually like using this new stuff? Like it seems like everyone's still using the old stuff. But I do want to get into Gaianet because we've gone off on some other stuff. Man. So no, I love it. This is my favorite conversation. So tell us a little bit about Gaianet and what you guys are enabling. It seems like you guys are a platform for agents. So tell us a little bit about it and what you guys are hoping to accomplish.
Yep. So Gaia, we're essentially taking open source large language models. If you go to Hugging Face, which is kind of like the GitHub for LLMs, for large language models, there's about 1.2 million of them open source right now. And that was about 500,000, I would say, a couple months ago. And so a lot of folks are in our world, fine tuning or creating RAG enabled versions of different LLMs and submitting those. So some of them are kind of like forks of other ones, but nonetheless, there's a huge proliferation of open source large language models. And so what we're doing is taking that, and within our developer framework, we have a way that you can take your own data, your own knowledge, vectorize it, which is essentially breaking it up into embeddings, which are like, imagine buckets of ones and zeros that represent a certain category or word that the AI can kind of crawl through to find the right answers. And we have a way to host those embeddings. There's a vector DB that enables that in an open source way. And then the whole that whole instance is running on an application runtime called Wasm Edge. Kind of works like a Docker instance, just allows for the agent to operate similarly on your local computer, on a GPU, CPU, cloud. And so if you have a network of these agents talking to each other, they're all kind of behaving in the same compute pattern. They're able to actually coordinate resources together. And then, of course, we have like an agent framework. Like that in itself is really an agent framework. But we have agent frameworks that we're partnered with, like AI16Z. You can use Eliza and plug in Gaia as the API that calls to the LLM. Kind of consider it like an LLM wrapper, where right now you see all these frameworks kind of floating out in space, and they're having new kind of applications and integrations. But a lot of them still use OpenAI as their backend API. And what they don't realize is they're giving all this data back to big tech, and we don't know what they're doing with it. We can assume it's nothing super dangerous right now, but who knows? Like there's a giant black box that no one really knows what's going on inside of. There's also the concern that if at some point they decide to create a competitor based on that data, they could just completely eat your lunch. If you're sitting on like really rich domain expertise and data, you could also see a world where, just like Google and Apple, they open up an app store. They already have one, but they start charging you 30% for this agent that you're running, or increase your service fees for the API calls. Or who knows, the U.S. government's like, hey, AI should not be minting securities, minting their own tokens. Let's shut off any API call that is talking to an AI agent in Web3 space. Then what do you do? And so we're building censorship-resistant, sovereign, knowledge systems that people can essentially build their own AI company with our stack. And so we see it as this intersection between your LLM, your compute, and your knowledge or your data. And we see that as kind of like the starting point. We see that as, in early next year, we'll have a network where people can actually validate and verify those resources, that like combination of resources. Um, so imagine like if you have a domain that's trained on like Uniswap data, and you believe that this Uniswap nodes are providing a good service to this decentralized network of AI inference, or like a GPT service. Um, then you can go and stake on behalf of that and validate that it's providing value to the network. But I think what I'm most excited about is we have that network that will create a way for people to contribute their data and their knowledge to the world's internet. It kind of takes us into this. We had read, write, internet, and then we had read, write, own. I think we're now entering read, write, own, and think, where our applications can actually have the ability to have intelligence, and that's quite interesting. Like if we can take a knowledge base of Uniswap, like I just mentioned, and Uniswap can have an agent that has its own applications. Like it can be a chatbot technically, but it can also think for itself. It could run a hackathon. It has a wallet, and it has like permissioning features to enter different communities. It has the ability to perhaps like make a deal where it brings revenue back to the protocol. Perhaps it has the ability to mint NFTs based on some sort of behavior that open up additional community like permissionings. There's all kinds of crazy apps that I'm seeing in the space that are really, really interesting. But overall, like we're trying to build out this network where everyone can take their own knowledge and really become their own AI company, and not let the system take advantage of them.
Yeah, there's so many things I want to touch on there. One is you kind of mentioned this, is like having multiple agents fulfill tasks, so almost having like swarms. Do you feel like that's kind of the future, where we'll have almost like employees at a company where you would fine tune them to specific skill sets?
Yeah, so I'm really bullish on this meme I'm kind of driving right now, which is your agent has a meme coin, our agents have jobs. We are not the same, Anon. I love agents with meme coins, but I think we're really focused on agents that produce work or do some sort of task. And I believe in a future where, we are going to have swarms or consortiums, cohorts of agents that fulfill a task together. It's also like for the decentralization and the structure that computes at right now. These aren't operating like transformers; they're operating as agents. So you do need multiple agents producing or having specific contexts or specific lines of work. We're not there yet where it's like it's an AGI in the Web3 world. I think we're more looking at collective intelligence, and so there's going to be units that come and go and cracked team that just like finishes the task and gets paid for it, gets a reputation and leaves. The other crazy thing is that we are entering a world where we are also going to work alongside these beings. We're also going to work for these beings. I see it's very obvious already that humans will go talking to agents asking for how we can work or what we can do to work. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it does seem like crypto is like the logical endpoint for most AI stuff. Like, we've had DAOs for a very long time, but like, in what sense were they really autonomous or really like that decentralized? Like, I think probably 10% less voting. So talk to us a little bit about, do you feel like these agents will start to form their own like decentralized companies? Maybe it'll take a different kind of name, but what do you think is the future there?
Man, you have great questions. So at Consensus, I actually was head of our DAO practice for a bit. We were looking to take a lot of our products and spin them out to DAOs. It's it's 2021, so it's a little difficult due to the regulation. Still kind of unknown. But DAOs at that time, we're really ambitious in creating this this autonomous nature of running an organization. And what are the pieces of like running an organization with these protocols? Usually the most successful ones were protocol DAOs. So, right now there's like $50 billion of assets under management of these like community managed DAOs of people that hold tokens in these protocols. And they basically can co-govern, the protocols upgrades, the protocols yields, generating activities or monetary policy. basically, strategies that would increase the underlying value of the organization. We saw other kind of slivers of DAOs, which was like, social DAOs where people were coming together in a tokenized membership club kind of format. We had media DAOs like Bankless DAO that was, tokenizing entire publishing company or media company and incentivizing people to do the work. And a lot of problems with DAOs was the bureaucracy or it was the bureaucracy of like of good ideas getting to the top. And also there's like no top. So maybe like getting to the center. And there's also the complexity of like working group coordination. So there's a lot of inefficiency of, who did the work. There was a lot of DAO tools that were promising like, if this person did work, we all vote in a circle and equally distribute the pay for like, who did the work, et cetera. A lot of the stuff was ambitious and important and is a piece of technology and internet that I want to live in. However, it's just a lot of work. And so I think a lot of that can be abstracted away by agents kind of doing the busy work. And I think protocols or DAOs could, one, they could pay for these services for their employees technically. The DAO decides to pay for a fleet of agents to make sure that we're like operating efficiently. And then two is like the DAO itself sits on a ton of data, and there's a ton of operations that can be packaged into agents. And you can start creating DAO delegate co-pilots. You can create community manager agents that talk to folks trying to push proposals. So it could be like, here's a PDF of the proposal I'm trying to push to Arbitrum DAO. What's the likelihood that this passes? If not, give me some critiques for how to improve it. You also could kind of create, this is kind of an eerie one, but you can create like an agent that is the voice of the DAO, kind of like a god kind of voice, which, no DAO has a leader, no DAO has a central person. So giving it a voice would be very interesting. Like, just asking it, what is the future roadmap of the community? Like, what are you thinking? And it starts getting to like very interesting ways where, we can just improve a lot of processes that we're not autonomous. But I think now we can bring some autonomous back to the DAO.
Yeah, it does raise a very interesting question. Like, it does seem like these AI agents in the future will just be our bosses. Like, pretty much like a boss in olden days, or like you go to a mentor who knows more about this thing. And yeah, that like I use my AI pretty much as like a mini therapist. I'm like, hey, I have this problem with my business. Can you help me? And you're just like, yeah, it would just make sense that it's practically already my boss. Maybe I practically have a boss there. But tell us a little bit about some of the future roadmap for you guys. Like, what's on the horizon? I know you mentioned testnet.
Yeah. So right now, we're looking at developer go-to-market. So we are trying to work with as many partners as possible to think through interesting integrations. And the way we look at integrations are really two major pathways. One is agents. So anyone that has domain expertise or knowledge that we can package in an agent that showcases what you can do is very interesting for us. And then more importantly, we're looking for agents that, we can train and make them viable business models. So if they can start monetizing their services right away, it's very interesting. So I'm building an agent launchpad with some partners that essentially will kind of help different domain expertise launch agents with some sort of functionality and a token. And second pathway that we see integrations or building is agent integrations. So as these agents scale, we talked about it earlier, but what services do they need? What applications are they looking for? And so we want to start building an engineering roadmap with partners that would bring attention in that direction. I think a lot of folks in DAI space, their approach has been building everything on their own, or like, if you're building a DAI fintech layer, like, you'd want to build an AI specific wallet for some reason. I'm thinking on the other side, like, how do we take everyone on the Web3 infrastructure side and convince them that they need to start building it for AI agents? So we, through my relationships for the past decade, working with engineers, like my goal has been, driving integrations and use cases so that we can, commercialize some of these opportunities. And then lastly on the roadmap, like we have our network that will, go live early next year. We'll be, working with Eigenlayer on some piece of that. Also some other partners, hoping to work with Base, for example. But a lot of this will be on Ethereum, and we're really looking for folks who want to bring their knowledge or the domain expertise into this network. And also there are really cool ideas for integrations, different applications, different frameworks. We really want people to build in our ecosystem, and we will have a DAO. We will have some of these interesting components that will continue to drive the community's ideas to the surface. And you gave me some good ideas with the DAO. Like I really do think we should experiment or dog food a lot of these ideas with our own DAO. So pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely so many opportunities. So one thing we do like to ask before we wrap is for one startup idea, we like to ask each of our guests as to like, what do you think is an area that you feel like is underdeveloped, or you're like, I can't believe no one's built this. And because you're a hackathon expert, I bet you have some good ideas you've seen come through the pipeline.
Yeah, and maybe I can. I wrote an article called 69 plus AI agent projects that you can build for the rise of AI agents. Maybe you can post it here in the comments of this recording. But I've got a lot of thoughts on that. I think the most interesting one for me that I haven't seen yet, that it's coming, would be like a WordPress for AI agents that are operators, and that's kind of what we want to build. So anyone should go in and just find a template like for running an agent that can put on a hackathon. That should be templated and open source, and the service should really be about kind of pulling together your compute, your agent, perhaps like the knowledge base, and like integrations should be like plugins. It should be really easy for people to deploy and train their own AI agent to do certain tasks. Right now, it's still pretty developer first. And, I think there's also room for like creator agent platforms. So like, we had some hackathon submissions that were like, deploy your own AI kind of virtuals personality, just like with drag and drop features. The ease of use is kind of where my head would be at.
Yeah, so there's so many good ideas. One I'm exploring is like, how can I just download the corpus of all my content creation and just essentially generate like a second me to help propagate the message, or like be like, hey, I had a great conversation with Matt. How can I derive like a blog post, a bunch of insights out of there? People have done it, but it's never looked that particularly good. So builders hop on it. And then finally, where can people learn more about Gaia? Like, shout out any website, where can they chat with you online?
Yeah, so you can find us on Gaianet.ai, GAIANET.ai. We have Twitter, reach out to us there. We also have a Telegram group. You can find me in there. You can tag me. I'm happy to chat on Telegram, Twitter, you name it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and to everyone else, let's continue building the future of Web3 and on-chain AI.